Feminist movement. I don't need no man, no way. Sexual revolution. Let's just all give away love for free. Okay? And then incentivization of the government. We're subsidizing slovenly behavior. And so all of those things fueled the father absence pathology that we see. What has fueled a lot of the father absent pathology that we're seeing right now? So I mentioned the welfare state. So I hate to say that there's like, I'll never believe that one particular thing, you know, creates all of what we see, right? Yeah. There's only one thing we can point to. There's several things. I think the singular most impactful thing was the welfare state. However, you had some other things going on at the time that made the welfare state a perfect storm. Yep. And that was, number one, the feminist movement. The feminist movement. So the whole idea, I don't need no man. So think about what happened in the welfare state. The government comes in, what some people call, I was on April Chapman's show, Stand Up.
Don't be talking about her on this show.
And she said Zaddy government. She called it Zaddy government. And Zaddy came in and they said, okay, we will give you a check if there's no man in the house. And we were talking about the movie Claudine. Yeah, remember Claudine? Yep. And so James Earl Jones, he was like, yo, look, get your stuff out of here, man. You know, get your shoes, you know, get your hat. You know, you can't have no traces of a man in here. And that was such a real thing. And so the government was coming through, had spot checkers to make sure there was no man in the house. And if there was no man in the house, you can get that check, right? And so Walter Williams said that if you tax something, you get less of it. If you subsidize something, you get more of it. And he said what the government began to do is subsidize slovenly behavior. And so men saw that as an incentive to not stick around. They were like, yo, free love. So what was also happening in the 60s and 70s? Free love, right? Sexual revolution. Everybody's like, do a little dance, make a little love, get down tonight. So that was
Kevin, he don't know that song.
That was the culture, right? And so that's the culture feeding into this ideology of, oh, the government will come in and just take care of that. Okay, cool. Drop that off. Keep it moving, homie. Papa was a Rolling Stone. So then you have that going on, right? And so they just drop them off and not taking care of kids. And then lo and behold, you had a generation where you had a boom and an explosion from, man, and remember what I said earlier, 1965, 25% of black kids had no dads in the nation. 2 decades later, just 2 decades, it tripled. It tripled. Feminist movement. I don't need no man, no way. Sexual revolution. Let's just all give away love for free. Okay? And then incentivization of the government. We're subsidizing slovenly behavior. And so all of those things fueled the father absence pathology that we see. So I just want to make sure I brought that point up.
No, you're right. And you touched on, I just want to hit so people really understand. There was really a rule called a no man in the house rule. Yep. And the government literally had people that would go around the check to make sure that woman did not have a man in the house. And if she didn't, she got the check. And so it incentivized women, not just incentivized, it encouraged them not to have a man in the house, not to get married, just to have single kids. And then they give you a check per kid. Like they were subsidizing this behavior. And I saw you on the April show. I'm sorry, Mo. I say April. But what made it hit hard, because on her show, you quoted a quote from Lyndon B. Johnson about the importance of family. And that quote, then his policy did not align. He talked about the importance of family being the pillar of our nation and our communities and all this stuff. But then his policy encouraged people, the black community especially, not to have families.
Yeah, let me give you that quote, Kev. Is that okay? Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
So that quote, he said, the family is the cornerstone of our society. More than any other force, it shapes the attitudes, the hopes, the ambitions, and the values of the child. And when the family collapses, it is the children that are usually damaged. When it happens on a massive scale, the community itself is crippled. So unless we work together to strengthen the family, to create conditions under which most parents will stay together, all the rest, schools and playgrounds and public assistance and private concerns, will never be enough to completely cut the circle of despair and deprivation. And lo and behold, isn't it ironic that his policies undermine that everything he just said?
Yep. So I mean, you can think what you want, but my mind goes to immediately was this intentional?
Was it intentional?
And I don't know how it couldn't have been, because you weren't ignorant of the importance of family and what that affects on children and communities. But then you create a policy where you encourage women not to have men in the house, and you pay them not to.
And that's why I said, I think I might have mentioned this. It might have been a slip of the tongue, but I said there was a systematic incentivization of men not to be in the home.
Yeah. And so, like I said, it was all these forces happening at one time. And just to rehash the timeline, out of slavery, 85% of Black families intact. Even through the Great Depression, the Black families are leading the charge. You got the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s.
Poverty's
going down
at the greatest rate that it has in history for Blacks.
Something started to change around the 60s, right? And so 1965, so remember we got Jim Crow, the Civil Rights Act, 1964, 1965. So Blacks kind of get this, I guess you say, freedom to an extent, right?
Yeah.
There's full rights, full citizenship.
Right. Now, there's also another thing that we can add to, again, not just one thing is a core issue, and then there was all these other things fueling it. There was a lot of Blacks migrating to the urban sectors, right? A lot of Blacks migrating to the urban sector. What's happening? They're getting away from the Bible Belt. And so I remember Walter Williams saying that there was a time when, you had, Black women, you down south, you got pregnant, what they do?
They send you away.
They send you away. It was some shame associated with that. And then he said we started, there was no shame and social ostracism associated with pregnancy anymore. So that was kind of symbolic of the idea that people were getting away and breaking loose from the values that they had learned, the Judeo-Christian values. But, when they went to the city, they're like, look, it's about to be on. Yep. And so people were breaking away from what they had been taught in the urban. And so here's the other thing about Patrick Moynihan that people don't understand. Patrick Moynihan also mentions, he said, listen, y'all, because they was calling him racist and they were saying he was blaming the victim. So he was saying, well, listen, I grew up without a dad in the Irish community. Patrick Moynihan grew up fatherless too. His father abandoned the home. I don't know if it was he abandoned the home or his father died, but there was a point in time where his father was not in the home, and he grew up fatherless, and he saw in the Irish community the explosion, and he actually documents this in the Moynihan report, that there was a similar pathology happening in the Irish community, where they saw crime on the rise, they saw poverty, and all these other things that were linked to father absence.
Wow. And I think that really is important to highlight, because while we talk about the issues that are impacting the Black community, a lot of these issues overlap because sin doesn't know color. Exactly. And so when you look at sin and the impacts of sin, you're going to get the result. Regardless of what your color is. So Absolutely. if we are not walking in accordance with God's design, there's going to be impact regardless of what your color is.